Hi guys, welcome to another introduction to CrafTangles, and today we'll be speaking about a new product which is recently launched, which is called as CrafTangles Artcast. Now while talking about Artcast, we'll also be talking about our another product which is called as CrafTangles Art Epoxy Resin, because they are kind of similar in nature and are interlinked. So what is Artcast? Now, to understand what is Artcast, we need to first understand what is art epoxy resin, which I know almost most of you would already know, as many of you are loyal customers to our brand. So resin is something in which you can mold, right? So you can create products like these, right? You can play with different kind of pigments and use different kinds of molds to create boxes like so. You can make coasters with them, right? You can add transfers on top of it, and then you can make things like these. So these is again another resin coaster, but here I have added our CrafTangles transfer it for a coat, which is like this. So it's time to believe in you, right? So you can also play along with some opaque pigments, some alcohol inks to create these kind of feathered effects, which I have done over here. So for this I have used many opaque pigments available at Handmade and also CrafTangles alcohol inks. So if you are a health conscious person, right, if you are conscious about your health, you know that epoxy resin, while using epoxy resin, there are certain standard things that you need to take care of, right, which is also written over here if you go through our instructions. So normally you need to wear a mask, you need to work in a ventilated area, right, because at the end of the day, this is not a it's like varnish, so you have to take care of your health while using these products, like how you would use a varnish or how you would use a spray, right, that you spray on top of your artwork, etc. So similarly, epoxy resin also, there are certain restrictions or things that you need to take care of when you work with art epoxy resin. The other thing that you need to take care of is that art epoxy resin normally gives you like 45 minutes to 1 hour, 30 minutes, I would say, to 1 hour of working time, depending on, how hot or how cold of a climate you live in. After that, it takes at least 18 to 24 hours to demold, and then it will take another couple of days to, cure. Now again, all the details of what are the curing times, how to mix it, etc., etc., are written over here. Now we live in Bombay, which is comparatively a hot climate throughout the year, right? So normally 30 minutes, 40 minutes is the shelf life that I get whenever I mix this and use this. Now these won't work in an extremely cold climate or in an extremely hot climate, which is a common thing with resin, right? That in an extremely cold climate it will not cure properly, so you'll kind of have to maintain the temperature when you are working in the room that you are working in, right? In an extremely hot climate it will start curing faster, so you will have to work that quickly. Now my one of my issue with this particular epoxy resin is that it takes a lot of time to cure. There are multiple flash cure resin available. However, my issue again with those is that they are comparatively, they release a lot of fumes if you read about it online, etc. And that is why I don't like to work with them, because I normally tend to work in a closed space, which is a studio. So I like, when I have to work with resin, I have to work in an open ventilated area, like in a gallery or a living room with a lot of open air spaces, which is letting the air move around. And my setup is comparatively a closed setup, and plus I am a very impatient person, so if I mold something, I need it to be cured quickly. So that is why, even though I love resin, the effect it gives, and we'll talk about what is the difference between the two, I was always interested in what is something else, right? So what is something which I can use to cast similar projects, however it will not take so much time and it is easier for me to work with in a closed space. So here comes our alternative, which is Artcast. Now, before I get into the Artcast details comparison with epoxy resin, I want to mention that epoxy resin we have is in 3 sizes. So this is the smallest size, which is 250 grams of part A and 125 gram of part B. So this works like part A is 2 2 parts part A and 1 part B, and then you mix it thoroughly and then you pour it, right? So that is how resin works. So this is the smallest size, which is in total 375 grams. Then we have the second size, which is 500 grams part A and 250 grams part B, which is a 750 gram, which is a medium sized resin pack. And then we have the largest pack, which is 1 kg part A and 500 grams part B. So it is a 1.5 kg pack of resin, right? So all those three resin parts are available on Handmade. So that was resin, and now we are introducing another product which is called Artcast. So how is Artcast? Let's talk about how to use this. Then we'll get into the differences, and then we'll get into the similarities, etc. So this has a different ratio than resin. Our resin is 2 parts to 1 part resin ratio. However, with Artcast you have to use 2.5 part of base, which is a powder. So there are no two liquids in Artcast. It is a powder and a liquid form. So the powder needs to be put 2.5 parts and the liquid needs to be put 1 part. So let's say you are putting 10 grams of liquid. Then you will put 25 grams of powder and mix it. Now coming on to the similarities of the two products, right? It can be used to mold the same things that you use to mold an resin project, right? So here I had molded a box out of mold just to show you that how deep can these go. Resin can also go deeper. However, if you are working in a very deep mold like a big planter, etc., then I would highly suggest that you work in layers. Now with Artcast there is no such restriction. You can do the entire planter in one go, right? And it can also be easily used to mold the same molds that we have used for resin, right? So this is the same exact mold. Here I have used Artcast and our pigments, and here I have used our resin and our epoxy resin and our mica pigments. Okay, so you can do the exact same thing. Here is a heart example that I had done. So here I have used our pink and white alcohol inks with our art epoxy resin, and here I have used our black pigment with Artcast. So you can see it works beautifully again in the same molds, right? So it can essentially do everything that your resin can. The only thing that you cannot do with this is, the only major difference is that you cannot do transparent resin with this. So for example, if I show you what I had shown you earlier, right, this transparent coaster is what we had done with resin. I won't be able to achieve this with Artcast because Artcast by nature is opaque. So it dries naturally, it dries like a creamish tone in color. So if I have to show you its original color, right, I will show you this piece. I'll show you this piece. So do you see this color? This is its original color. This is the original color of Artcast. So it is not pure white. It is slightly natural white, I could say. Natural white to more cream tone rather than pure white. So for example, this is quite white, right? So you can see the difference between the two tones. So this is more on the natural and yellow side, and this is pure white, which is a bright white, right? So this is the color difference and the original color. Now I've already talked about the ratio. So this is the smaller size that we are doing for Artcast, which is 500 gram base and 200 gram liquid. So 1:2.5 ratio. We also have it in a bigger size, which is 400 grams and 1000 gram, which is double of the smaller size. So this is 1000 gram powder and 400 grams liquid, right? So these are the two sizes of Artcast that we are releasing. Now apart from that, we are also releasing like 10 pigment shades which work beautifully with our Artcast. So I'll just keep these aside. I have limited space on my table. So just to keep it here, right? So you can see the packaging, etc. over here. Now these are the 10 shades that will come. So in each bottle you get 15 ml of pigment. These are quite concentrated pigments to work with art cast. However, remember guys, unlike resin, where if you want a very vibrant color, you just use a couple of drops, because resin is transparent in nature, right? So here I have used alcohol inks, and I think I had added, like for this small piece, I had added like 2 or 3 drops to create this vibrant look. However, with art cast, since its natural shade is this kind, right? It's not transparent, it is white, natural white shade. What will happen is, if you add little bit, it will give you these kind of pastel shade. So this is using this pigment, but in a lesser amount, so it gave me this kind of pastel shade. And if you want, let's say, more vibrant colors, for example, I will show you another one of my sample, which is this color, right? This is an extremely vibrant color palette. So for this, I had used our blue pigment and our green pigment, and I have kind of created this marble effect, if you see at the back and the front. And for this, what I have done is I have added quite a bit of it. So I had added, like in this much quantity, I had added like five drops, 4 drops, 5 drops of each color to make it very vibrant, because I wanted a vibrant statement piece. So remember, if you it's your painting concept, right? If you add anything to white, it will become lighter. If you want a very dark shade of it, you need to add more pigment. So that is what you'll be doing with this as well. It will give you a range of colors from pastel to something this vibrant, right? So just to show you how different of a color you can get. So this is a black art cast piece that I did. Now this is more of a black marbling with a little bit of white scattered over, and this is a completely opposite piece, right? So this has medium black and medium white, so it is kind of a 50-50 ratio that I did, and I did not mix it a lot. So wherever that black was mixed thoroughly, you can see it gave this dark vibrant black, and in certain areas you get this grays, and in certain areas you get white. And here I want to show you even a lighter version. So here I added just, I think, 1 drop of black in this entire mix that I had created, and then I poured in, and you can see it has very muted black, right? So you can go from light to medium, right, to medium shades, to an extremely dark shade, depending on how much pigment you use. So that is the beauty of this pigments with this art cast, and that is why specifically we have released these pigments to create to use with the art cast. Now, are these pigments blendable? They are blendable. So let's say if you wanted to create a turquoise color, like how I have done over here. So here I wanted to show you marbling between two colors, and that is why I have used green and blue, which in between creates turquoise shades. So do you see this blue over here, this blue over here? This is where the blue and the green mixed to create a turquoise shade, and that is exactly what you can do. So this was partial blending, because I was creating a marble effect. However, you can add 1 drop of green and 1 drop of blue and create a completely new shade as well. So these pigments are blendable in art cast, and you'll be able to create beautiful shades. So not just these 10 shades, you can create an array of shades using just these 10 pigments. And again, these 10 pigments we have released in such a way that you get one per color family. So you have one brown, you have one white, black, then you have white, red, yellow, orange, then you have violet, green and blue. So you get all the shades of per color family, and depending on if you want to create your own new tones, you can mix them and create your own tones as well. So that was pigments for art cast, right? Now we'll talk about some of the projects that I have created, and for those of you who are interested, all the videos of all these projects that I'm showing you will be available on our YouTube channel. So you can head over there and see all the videos there. Now just to show you, right, I'll start with how I created them, and that is probably how I'll be posting them also. So the first thing that I created was this tea light holder. Now again, whatever products that I am using or talking about are all available on Handmade. Okay. So this is our tea light coaster, sorry, tea light holder that we created. Inside that there'll be a tea light holder, tea light which will go in, right? So this was a simple project that I started first. I wanted to create a subtle marble look. So I hope you can see this subtle marble look that I created, right? So for this I have used art cast and I have used brown pigment to create that shading. So again, not a lot of it. I have just used a little bit of brown pigment. And then what I have done is I have to get this gilded look. What I have done is I have used foil magic with some brush and I gave it, I think, a minute or so to dry, a minute or 2 minutes to dry. And then I added gilding flakes on top of it. So this is our red and gold gilding flakes and our gold gilding flakes. So, these are the two colors that I have added on top of it to create this gilded look. Now, I just wanted to create a sort of festive look for this tea light holder, and that is why I have added gilding flakes. And then what I have done is I have added this varnish on top of it. So I have used gloss varnish. This is CrafTangles decoupage gloss varnish. However, it works beautifully with art cast as well. So there are many uses of this. A lot of artists use this on canvas to prime their paintings, etc. It also works beautifully with art cast. There is no separate product that you need to varnish or seal your art cast projects. If you are already a loyal member of our brand, you would already have this and you can use the seal, right? So this is how much, so basically how it dries is this matte finish. Okay, it's completely matte when it dries. Now since we have used a glossy varnish, you can see the gloss that has been added. So that is how you can also add, gloss on your project, which is similar to the resin kind of a look that you will get. So this was our first project. Then the second project which I did was here. The from leftover paint that I had, right, I decided to create these small pendants. So what technique I used here was that in the mold itself I stuck some gilding flakes and I did a pour on top of it. Now since these were small molds and gilding flakes, normally they are static by nature, they kind of stick to silicone molds. So you can see it stuck beautifully to the art cast as well, right? So here is the gilding flake that I had used. I had used this black and gold gilding flakes, right? And I stuck this with a brush on top of a pour of a silicone mold where I was pouring. And then I poured my art cast into that silicone mold, and that once it was dry, let's say, I think this was dry within 15 minutes. So once this was dry, I removed it and this is how it fused. After that, you need to thoroughly clean your silicone mold because the flakes will still be stuck to silicone mold. So it took me like good 15 minutes to wash my silicone mold because there are bits and pieces of gilding flakes stuck to it. But remember that you don't need any specialized glue to stick your gilding flakes onto your art cast while pouring. So this is two ways in which we did pouring. One was we first did pouring and then we stuck gilding flakes on top of our project using foil magic. And here we have used simply by sticking the foil into the mold and then pouring art cast on top of it, and it automatically fused. So this is now, here is an interesting thing. I played around with two different kinds of varnishes on the project. So this is using our traditional decoupage varnish which we have used over here in this project as well, right? So this will save our pendant from any wear and tear, and it also gave it a good glossy shine. So if you see the back of it, I normally also varnish my back, but I have kept it without varnish right now just to show you the differences. So you can see it's completely matte. And here you can see it's glossy, right? It is shiny. So this is with just one coat of decoupage varnish on top of the project, and then of course I'll drill it and make a nice pendant out of it, but just to show you the difference, right? So it is completely matte, and then here it is completely glossy. And here is using glaze. So do you see this resin like finish that I have got on top of my pendant? That is using liquid glaze. So this is what I have applied on top of it. So first I did a layer of varnish just so that it seeps into the pores and it closes all the pores of my pendant. And then what I did was I added a layer of liquid glaze and I let this dry overnight, and I get this resin like finish, or UV resin like finish on top of my pendant. So if you are a person who likes to make clay pieces or clay earrings, then I feel art cast will be a good alternative for you to try out different kinds of earrings. And liquid glaze will be a good alternative to UV resin if you're conscious about using resin on your day-to-day basis. So the next thing that I made was terrazzo, right? Because terrazzo is the most famous, I mean, it is the famous art form that you can do with casting, such kind of casting products, right? So what I have done with terrazzo is that I first kind of created this terrazzo chips, which I'll also be showing you how you can do it, in a couple of ways, not just one way. So I have made this terrazzo chips out of pink, purple, and then what I did was I simply added it in a white cast mixture over here, and then I kind of poured it in a mold. And then what I did was, once it was dry, I think this took me 25 minutes or 30 minutes to demold. This also took me 30 minutes to demold. This took me like 10-15 minutes to demold. So guys, I personally feel that with this kind of this much height of a project, you can easily demold in 30 minutes. So what do I mean by demold is that you can demold it and you can complete your sanding and stuff with it. However, it is not completely cured. For curing, as it is mentioned on the project, if with such kind of products, like art cast or art resin, what I would highly suggest is you read the back of it before actually implementing, or before starting with the project, even though how much ever knowledge you would have of the product, right? Because every product is unique to that particular brand, and there is certain time frame in which they work beautifully, right? So over here, if you see, if you read through everything, it is written that what is it, etc., etc. Now one of the major reasons, since I'm reading this, how is this different from resin, is that it is eco-friendly. What do I mean by eco-friendly is that over the period of time, this will degrade into the environment, unlike resin, which will, I don't know, which I don't think degrades, but even if it did degrade, it will take like tons and tons of years, right? So it is similar to plastic in that manner, but this is similar to clay in the manner that it will degrade, and it is a more eco-friendly version, right? It is highly durable, and it also contains pure acrylic resin. So basically this is a combination in which there is also resin, which gives us that toughness and that molding properties. And it can also be colored beautifully with pigments, as we talked about, right? And here, if you see, it cures in 30 minutes to 2 hours. So this is the normal ambient temperatures, right? 30 minutes to 2 hours. That we have written, because many places have temperature between 20 to 30 degree. Now when I work in Bombay, normally my temperatures are more than 30 degrees, so it is ideally like 32-35 degrees here in Bombay. So what happens is my stuff cures faster than, probably, let's say if I'm in Delhi during cold, it is 20 degrees, so that will cure a bit slower, right? So ideally 30 minutes it will be able to cure your coasters, or your tea light holders, etc. Now this kind of mold, which is slightly even more deeper, And what happens is this lid is comparatively it's thinner and it is easy to break when you are demolding stuff. Right now it's quite durable because it's been already a day that I had demolded it. But while you are demolding it, so in that 30-minute window, what will happen is these kind of things which are extremely thin, the chances are high that it may break if you kind of demold it roughly. So let's say this has a lot of kinks, right? So while demolding, I have to put in pressure to demold it. So you have to take extra care. And ideally, what I do is these kind of molds where there are a lot of ridges and a lot of delicate things, I like to keep this for 1 hour. So that ways I know that for sure within 1 hour it has cured quite nicely, and I will be able to handle it and it will not break in any way. Now, such kind of simple molds, which are your coaster molds or your tray molds and things like that, those are very simple mold, right? You all just need to peel it from the side and then just remove the air gap and remove the item. So these you can easily demold from 30 minutes. You'll normally start seeing everything being separated from here. Within like 20 minutes or 30 minutes, you'll see that the edges have started separating from the mold because your art cast has started drying. So that is all you need to take care of in terms of demolding. Now this is the terrazzo technique that I did. So this was a pure terrazzo technique where I had mixed everything into the mix, and then I demolded it, and then I sanded it, and then have varnished. And this is a more different quick way of terrazzo that I did. Again, you'll have videos of this where I'll be talking in detail about what exactly do we do here, etc., etc. So now just to show you another technique. So this is another famous technique which was terrazzo. Here we discussed gilding, right? Which is another famous technique with art cast projects. And then one of the most famous technique ever, which actually brings all the art cast projects to life, honestly, according to me, is these marbling technique, right? So here are all the pieces that I did with marbling. So this was more of a demo thing that I did, and I don't have a project for it, but just to show you that these are all the marbling stuff that I did. Right. So this was the first marbling technique that I did, where I mixed two colors in white to show you how they blend beautifully. It is kind of a seamless pattern of marbling that you get. Again, there is less white and a lot of color. So you will see, if I show you closely, right, you will see all the marbling happening between the two colors, and only white is what you will see over here, which was, the end white that was left while pouring. So little bit of white was left over here, rest all you can see is color. Now, based on how much pigment you add, here I added a lot of pigment, plus there were two colors. So this is more of a blending, and how beautifully the marble looks between the two colors. Here is where I did a lot of black, and I added a lot of black. So you can see only a little bit of white showing through. So marbling works beautifully when you can also do a lot of color, because there's a very general misconception when it comes to art cast community that you add little bit of color to get marble. Yes, of course, that's the easier way to do it, but you can also add more colors and get such kind of beautiful marbled pieces as well. It's just contrast. So this is more white, less black. This is more black, less white. So, you get kind of a contrast, but at the end of the day, both have that marble look. So it depends on what kind of look, you or your customers are going for. So don't be shy to play with pigments when, you are making art cast projects. Now, the second thing which I want to show you about is that this, right? So as we spoke about, so this is less black, medium black, where you get this beautiful marbling pattern, and this is higher black and very less white, right? So depending on how much you mix, you get these beautiful patterns of marbling. And trust me guys, you need to see videos of all these because they are amazing, like how much you can play with them to create beautiful projects. So now I wanted to show you one mistake which is very common in art cast community, right? And I also did that so that I could show it to you in a couple of projects. But what I did over here was I demolded my product, right? I demolded this piece and I immediately went and varnished it with decoupage varnish, right? This varnish. And what happened was, do you see, do you see over here the white lines, etc.? So it is, what is happening is that varnish is kind of breaking off in the corners. Okay, especially here you can see it has broken off, right? So this is what has happened. Now, why did this happen? Now, if you read properly behind this, is that it cures in 30 minutes to 2 hours and it is touch dry and can be unmolded. However, it takes 24 to 48 hours to reach its complete strength. Meaning what? When you mix the two parts, right? It is 1 part powder. So this is the powder and this is the 1 part liquid that you add, right? There is a liquid inside it when you are mixing the mixture and when you are pouring it, right? Within 30 minutes to 2 hours, it is touch dry. So due to some exothermic reaction, what happens is most of the water evaporates and you are able to demold your piece, and it, it creates this solid state. However, it is still drying, so it is still in between of curing. It is still there's still liquid in the pores which is drying off, and that process of completely drying takes 24 to 48 hours. Personally, I keep it 48 hours before, 48 hours. What I normally keep it for 4 days before I varnish it. Why? Because it is depending on, I live in a humid climate. Again, Bombay is a humid climate. So I always prefer that it is better to keep it for a day more rather than, varnishing and realizing that this issue happens and then removing it and then varnishing it again. So rather than doing that, I would always suggest that wait for 3 to 4 days normally for this to completely harden up and completely cure before you, put your layer of varnish. And that ways you are 100% sure that the varnish will not come off like how it has come off here in my case, right? So this is one thing that you need to take care of, guys, while you are applying your decoupage, that wait for 3-4 days. Don't be impatient. Now in such kind of pieces like this, right, like this is a very small piece, so this is normally cured within like 6-7 hours. So I molded it and then I added varnish and glaze on it a day after. So this was completely fine. You can see there is no cracks on top of it or anything, because it's a very thin layer and it's a very small piece. So normally it will cure in a day or so, I know. But ideally, if you are, let's say selling it and you want to be 100% sure, I would always highly suggest wait for 3-4 days and then add varnish and glaze on top of it to create, your beautiful pieces. So that was on varnishing. Okay. Another question which we get, is on the snapping technique. Now, if you Google, right, one of the famous thing that you can do with art cast is that create a piece and then snap it in half and then add resin in the other half. So it will kind of create, this half and half look, which is half art cast and half resin. So that's very in. So just to show you that you can snap, what I would suggest is that let's say you are doing it like this was, I think I demolded it after 30 minutes, and as soon as I demolded it, I snapped it in half. Okay, and you can see it snapped out beautifully, and then I'll do resin on top of this and in the other half of the part, and this I'll create a half and half project for you. But what I'm trying to say is, as soon as you demold it, if you are doing a snapping project, like snap it immediately before, because after a couple of hours it will be completely cured, right? So let's say this, right, I won't be able to snap it. The only way I can break is, I'll have to put hammer on top of it, and that will also chip it off. It's not going to break it, right? So the snapping with hand, you have to do like with as soon as you demold, like within 30 minutes to 2 hours. Don't wait more than that. Okay. And yeah, one last project that I think will be very useful for those of you, who are making art cast uh, professionally, and who are selling your pieces. Now, here is also one thing that I purposefully did to show you an issue that happens very common with art cast. It also happens with resin, and how you can avoid it, right? So, do you see this bubbles on the edges, right? Let me zoom in. Do you see this bubble? So here you can see, here is a big one, right? Here are the big ones. Now what happens is, when you are pouring art cast, since it is heavier as compared to resin is like water thin, right? So whatever bubbles you get in resin is in the resin itself. There is no vacuum that is created when you are pouring resin into the mold. However, since art cast is thicker, when you are pouring it, it will kind of, create vacuum, or it will not go in all the nooks and crannies like how it did over here. Like here you can see it went beautifully into the mold. But here is where, there are nooks and crannies of your molds. So what happens is, like, this is also a great example. So do you see, here there was a bubble, right? There is no perfect shape. Same goes here, right? So what happens is, in such cases, it may happen that your art cast does not go inside those crannies beautifully. Then what you need to do is, you need to tap your mold thoroughly. Like, you need to tap like crazily, like you need to, which I'll of course show you in my videos, but this is how you tap your mold. uh, let me just get a mold and show it to you. I think that will be easier. So this is the same mold, okay, in which I did this piece. So do you see this detailing right in the corners? So this is a detail where all the cast will slide off, and then this is the base part. So what you need to do is tap your mold like this, and make sure that you tap it nicely so that all the bubbles come up, and in that space art cast goes inside. Okay, the easier way, like let's say you are doing mass production, then you cannot just go on sitting and tapping your molds, right? It kind of gets tiring after a point of time. Then what you can do is, there are very easily these massagers, small massagers that you get on Amazon, which you can use, and you can kind of use it on the edges. And what they do is, they kind of create this vibrations which will vibrate your mold and remove and bring the bubbles on top. So you can use that as well to kind of remove bubbles. But that is one thing that you need to do. Like in case of resin, you need to make sure that you mix it slowly so that there are less bubble generated. Then you need to use a blowtorch to remove all the bubbles. Here, for that, you need to make sure that you tap it properly, because that ways there are no bubbles, such kind of bubbles that are created. Now I did not do it in this project as opposed to this one, just to show you the difference, right? So here there are, you can see a lot of bubbles, and the same here, you cannot see a single bubble, right? That is because I tapped this thoroughly, and I did not tap this at all, just to show you. I just tapped it, I think 3-4 times very lightly, just to make sure that there were no bubbles here. And you can see over here there were so many small bubbles that came in, which kind of did not create a perfect cast. So tapping is important to not create bubbles when you are using art cast, right? And the other thing that we did over here was that we used transfers, right? So let me just show you the transfer. So this is the transfer that I used. I used a few of the girls from here, and I added it on top of the project. And then I have used it like how I normally use CrafTangles transfers. And beautifully, they work beautifully on here as well as on resin as well, right? And then once this is completely dry after 3-4 days, what I'll do is I will add varnish on top of it and seal it. I could also add glaze just for a beautiful UV resin kind of a look. So I could do that as well. Like, let's see, I have not yet decided, but that is how I'm going to end, this particular project. But just to show you, you could of course, use a sketch pen. If you are good at drawing, you can draw on top of it with a sketch pen, and then after it is completely dry, after 3-4 days, you can seal that. However, if you are like me and cannot draw, you can use these kind of transfers to beautifully add patterns on top of your projects. So here, as you can see, I have done another technique which is very famous in Artcast community, that is adding splatters. So what I did was I first created small Artcast liquid in yellow, orange and pink, and I kind of splattered it on top of this project. Now here I did not let this dry. I immediately poured another level of, the natural color on top of it and completely filled the mold. However, if you let this dry for like say 10 minutes and then come in with next, your splatters will be much more roundish and, evident. So what I did here was, I kind of blended the splatters because I immediately poured after I added the splatters, and that created this kind of, wavy kind of a splatter effect, which I feel goes really well with these curls that I have used on transfers. However, let's say if your jam is to create a specific splatter effect, right? Then in that case, what you can do is put splatter on your mold, right, using your colors. Let this completely dry for like 15 minutes or 20 minutes, and then you pour your next, or the actual pour, which is your base pour, which is this color in my case, and then pour it properly. And then after 30 minutes demold it. Your splatters will be much more formed in shape rather than giving this abstract look. They will give you a more well defined look. So just by changing a time subtly, you can kind of do a lot of different variations. So that was my splatter project. And now I feel one of the most important thing which a lot of you would be interested in is how durable are these. Now this is completely cured. As I said, I had done this quite a while back when I was testing Artcast. So here what I'll do is I will just show you a small drop test. Now I hope nothing will happen on my table or it will not go anywhere. But just to show you, like, I will go beyond, like I am right now at my, let me just measure how far am I from the table. But we'll do a small drop test just to show you. Okay. And I think I am at 3 or 4 feet right now from where I'm dropping it on the top of a table just to show you. Okay, fingers crossed. Okay, I dropped it, and just to show you a close up, nothing was chipped. Sorry, I was talking very far from mic. So just to show you, nothing was chipped, right? Now I'll do it from just here in the camera itself just to show you again. This is like, I think 2 feet or something like that, 2.5 feet. So again, nothing chipped, right? We do have a lot of drop test videos that we have added on our Instagram, uh, or we'll be adding on our Instagram, where you'll be seeing this drop test videos where we have dropped it from 6 feet just to show you that it does not break. So that was now all of Artcast that I wanted to show you, some of the basic issues that people do, and they kind of get issues in their Artcast. So I hope you enjoyed this introduction of Artcast, where we talked about all the basic things or all the basic techniques. We talked about the product, we talked about what are the basic issues that people face. After all, after these video, there will also be a ton of tutorials that we'll be posting every week, so you can see those tutorials, and you can learn from them on how to do all these techniques that we talked about. All these project videos are short and they will all be voiceover. So if you have any queries, feel free to comment down below and we'll be able to help you on what exactly is your query. And if you like these kind of video, do like, and do comment. It really makes our day. And that was all about Artcast, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you in my next introduction. Till then, guys, take care. Bye bye.